A conference was held at the Central Coast Leagues Club today to combat the problem. Called Our Smokers Are Getting Younger, it was attended by police, teachers, council and health workers.
We're targeting illegal advertising, availability of tobacco, sales to minors and under 18 signs.
The alarming survey showed that 1 in 10 13-year-olds smoke every day. An expert from Sydney University claims many of those teenagers are already addicted to nicotine.
Without realising it, many young people, particularly those aged between about 13 and 15, become addicted to tobacco at a very early age. And what they found was that a large number of these kids want to give up, but actually find it incredibly difficult to do so.
One of the main reasons young people smoke is because of the easy availability of cigarettes. The survey showed that 20% of 12-year-olds were never refused by storekeepers. The Health Department is undertaking an intensive campaign against people who illegally sell cigarettes to under 18s.
The uptake age of smoking has been dropping and is continuing to drop. It's really a new problem and one which is increasingly a problem of today.
There are 430 juveniles in custody in New South Wales at the moment. Their crimes include theft, assault and murder. The Australian Institute of Criminology has hosted the 3-day conference in a bid to stop juveniles, some as young as 11, committing these crimes in the first place.
Whatever we do to prevent youth crime is going to spread across the whole community, other young people, and their potential is going to be better realised, and they're all going to be able to achieve and make more of a contribution to their society.
Another important issue to emerge from the conference is the alarmingly high number of young Aborigines in custody. Although they comprise less than 2% of the population, they make up 25% of juveniles in detention centres. England is leading the way in the field of crime prevention. It has set up an organisation entirely dedicated to preventing youth crime.
Well, in high crime areas you need to put in place measures which both prevent crime and prevent criminal behaviour. That is, measures which make crime more difficult to commit, such as physical security, neighbourhood watch, design and management, and measures which get at the inclination of young people who may be predisposed to offend.
Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
"88-year-old Ralph Hughes and his new bride, 81-year-old Edna, arrived in Rwanda for a visit with friends last Tuesday, 2 days before conflict broke out. It's been more than a week since anxious relatives in Australia have heard any word of their whereabouts. Today, Foreign Affairs confirmed the couple had made it safely to the country's capital of Kigali and were airlifted to nearby Nairobi in Kenya. This morning, ABC Radio made contact with the Hughes, who spoke of their ordeal.
But we were assured that they did not want us, that it was a kind of an internal affair.
It's estimated 20,000 people have been slaughtered in the warfare. The Lake Macquarie couple witnesses to the bloodshed while visiting an orphanage.
Well, we came very close to seeing it. There were 2 men taken out from our orphanage, and one was beaten up very badly and the other one was killed.
Foreign Affairs is working to bring the Hughes back home quickly, the pair eager to let relatives know they're now safe from danger.
I hope that we can't quite make arrangements yet, but within probably within 5 or 6 days we should be back in Australia. And we only want to tell our family that we are very happy that we are safe.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Meeting Nancy Borlase in person or on canvas has to be an experience not many people could forget. Her retrospective shows more than 70 paintings from her early student work in the 30s to her figurative work of the 40s and the work she describes as her best period, abstraction and collage, in the 60s. Only today she was reunited with a 67 painting she describes as her very best.
I didn't really know what had happened to this painting. And so the years went by. In fact, I had forgotten about it.
It's one of many now hanging in the National Gallery.
I think they should have informed me, but I was delighted when I heard. And I'm so pleased that it is at the National Gallery.
And having many other artists make it to that gallery through her work as an art critic in the 70s, she has a few tips for people reviewing her exhibition.
As far as my work is concerned, and I think you asked me a question, what do I think of it? Well, I just say, I just hand it over to the public after all this and let them make up their own minds.
Sixteen teams from across New South Wales have converged on Newcastle International Hockey Centre for the event. The Newcastle team in the red got off to a poor start in the three-day tournament. In this opening game against Crookwell, it lost 4-3. Tomorrow, Newcastle needs to beat Sydney and Sydney 2 to make it through to the finals on Sunday. Selectors will watch all games over the weekend to pick a state squad for the Australian Championships in Hobart in July.
In both clashes last year, the Falcons toppled Geelong. Coach Tom Wisman wants to see that trend continue when the Newcastle side plays the Supercats in Geelong this weekend.
It's a game we have to win now that we're 0-2, and we've played two tough teams. We've played some pretty good basketball, but we've come up short.
In the Falcons' two narrow losses this season, some may say they were unlucky. Tom Wisman disagrees.
Good teams create their own luck, and we probably created some unlucky breaks for ourselves by not making the big plays.
During a training run today, attention was given to defence. While that will be paramount during the game, the clash between Newcastle point guard Derek Rucker and former Falcon Everett Stevens should be an interesting one.
Certainly against Geelong defensively, we're going to have to do some things. They have a very talented team, and Everett Stevens just coming off a 32-point ball game. I'm sure he'll want to play well.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Defensively,
and even at an early age, I knew they were circumstances. And the lifelong friendships that were made.
Standing for the first hymn.
Emergency crews waited in silence for the 21-year-old, hoping they wouldn't have to play a part in the afternoon drama. After more than an hour of circling the airport to burn excess fuel, Stuart Third brought the Tobago in. A near-perfect landing for the young pilot, who's clocked up countless hours in the air since he started as a 16-year-old. The trouble-free touchdown even more impressive, considering Third had no control over his aircraft speed. But the Australian Flight Training School trainee pilot played down the experience.
Not a great hassle. We'll be right.
He says he's performed the manoeuvre hundreds of times, preparing for such an emergency.
Just that we couldn't reduce airspeed coming in. We had 120 knots on downwind, so cut the engine at 800 feet on finals, and here we came.
Investigations are continuing into the incident, but it's believed a bolt broke loose from the throttle control. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Patricia Bannister has been studying the history and politics of South Africa since being told of her mission 2 months ago. She'll be among 6 Australians representing Catholic Relief in South Africa, joining thousands of other people from around the world to monitor the first all-party election. Patricia will help thousands of people to vote for the first time, to hopefully get democracy off to a sound start in South Africa. It's a daunting task in a politically unstable country, but Patricia is taking it all in her stride.
I suppose there's always a little apprehension there. Even just going down the street can be a bit dangerous these days. But as I said, I'm quite sure that they'll take good care of us.
Election monitors have been given a strict code of conduct in an attempt to keep all parties on side. They can't show any political bias, which even excludes the wearing of clothes with party colours. Patricia says the risks and restrictions are worth it to be part of a great change in history.
It's exciting to be a part of history, for sure. We're not very often given that opportunity in world history. We make our own history, of course, in our families and areas, but to be a part of world history is very exciting.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Yeah.
Well, we have one big gun.
Way to go.
Why did I make it go backwards?
Is that right now? The last sentence there.
19-year-old Shane Riley escaped from St Heliers Corrective Centre at Muswellbrook last month. He was serving time for break-and-enter offences and car stealing. Police first spotted Riley in the Newcastle area on Monday night. A chase ensued, but Riley eluded them when he dumped his car and ran into bushland. This afternoon, police were told that Riley was still in the Ellamore Vale area, disguised in a wig, a hat and sunglasses. He was eventually captured in an area off Crowdis Road where children were playing.
A blue car come down the hill. I looked at him. They got out with a gun, come out the front, pointed at him. I don't know. Just spin out and they all come from different directions. They said, "Get down on the floor, Shane." We just cleared out.
Riley was taken to Wallsend Police Station where he's being questioned. In the meantime, the bomb squad has cordoned off a house believed to belong to Riley's girlfriend. He has told police that the house is booby-trapped and will explode if any door or window is opened. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
As sport becomes more professional, the try line is often being superseded by the bottom line. Many players are trying to make the most money possible out of their relatively short careers. This has resulted in a growing number of players ending up in courts of the legal kind.
Courts are expensive, they're time consuming, and they get a lot of publicity, and sports people and sports organisations most of the time don't want that kind of thing.
But the Australian and New Zealand Sports Law Association has offered a solution, a tribunal to mediate between players and administrators, both professional and amateur, to avoid high costs and embarrassing publicity. People with experience in specific sports would be used as mediators in the disputes.
Our intentions would be to get appropriate people. We wouldn't want front row rugby league forwards sitting and looking after a dispute involving perhaps the director of the Sydney Art Gallery and an artist. You've got to get appropriate people.
The Confederation of Australian Sport and the Australian Sports Commission supported the plan last week at a conference in Canberra. If both back up their support with financial assistance, players could be left to concentrate winning on the paddock rather than off it. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
In Seattle, the American city which has set a world standard for community involvement in CPR, it's compulsory for employees of many organisations to learn the resuscitation technique that can make the difference between life and death, particularly for heart attack victims. Now Lake Macquarie City Council has become what's probably the first council in Australia to provide CPR training for all employees. To speed the process, New South Wales ambulance paramedics Alan Playford and David Higgins have volunteered to show the council's qualified first aid attendants how to teach CPR quickly and simply. Once the trainers are trained, classes for other staff will begin. Since the documentary was first broadcast last December, more than 14,000 people have been trained in CPR. Groups involved ranging from neighbourhood first aid to retired ambulance officers. In recent weeks alone, a volunteer team from Cooks Hill Surf Club has trained almost 1,000 people. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Shane Riley was held in custody overnight at Newcastle Police Station. He was recaptured yesterday afternoon in a block of Housing Commission units off Crowders Road at Ellamore Vale. With Riley's family in court this morning, Police Prosecutor Sergeant Phil Lloyd told how at the time of his arrest, Riley was wearing sunglasses, a wig and a baseball cap to disguise himself. 19-year-old Riley has been charged with escaping from St Heliers Corrective Centre at Muswellbrook last month, where he was serving a 6-year sentence. He also faces a charge of using a weapon to resist arrest on Monday night. The third charge against Riley relates to a conversation he had with a police officer yesterday afternoon, in which he made a false representation that a bomb was at the premises of 18 Curtin Avenue, Rankin Park. Riley did not enter a plea, bail was formally refused and the matter adjourned until next Tuesday at Wallsend Local Court, where Riley will obtain the services of Aboriginal legal aid. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Every 3 months, the Hunter Valley Research Foundation charts the course of the local economy. This latest study highlights a rise in confidence within the community that conditions are set to get better.
People seem to be much more optimistic about their own financial circumstances and the state of the economy in the coming year, so I'd expect them to be spending more in the coming year.
Compared to this time last year, there are 21,000 more jobs in the Hunter, so business is hiring workers. However, the overall unemployment rate is still high, 15.9%, 5 percentage points above the state average. And unemployment rates are unlikely to drop, especially considering the latest downturn in the manufacturing sector. In the Hunter, the private sector is looking to increased returns in tourism and mining. Nationally, inflation is sitting on 1.5%, and that should remain relatively static.
Wages growth is not excessive, the exchange rate's going our way. I think you can expect inflation to pick up to say 2.5% by a year from now.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
These three futuristic witches are characters in one of theatre's classics, The Story of Macbeth.
It's based on a true story, of course, about a famous general who assassinated the king and took over the whole of Scotland and became a tyrant to try and keep himself in power.
Joining Bell on stage is wife Anna Volska in the role of Lady Macbeth.
He's goaded on by his wife, who is extremely ambitious, and together the two of them decide to make a good team and they'd be better running the country than the present incumbent.
Costumes and sets have been designed with the aim of making Shakespeare relevant to modern audiences.
It's full of extraordinary visual images, the music is wonderful, the action is fantastic. It's a really exciting, high-class melodrama.
Member for Lake Macquarie Jeff Hunter has long proposed a foreshore park for Lake Macquarie, but his private member's bill has been put on hold while negotiations proceed over land at Morisset. The 1,500 hectares surrounding Morisset Hospital have been identified as being excess to the hospital's needs. Jeff Hunter would like to see that land handed over to the community.
The fact that we have three government departments here today, Health, Conservation and Land Management and our local council, all here to talk about the possibility of this land becoming a foreshore park, shows that there is interest.
Department of Health representatives were expected to make an announcement on the land's future this afternoon. However, it appears before any decision is made, further discussions need to be carried out with Lake Macquarie Council.
It'll be a fairly expensive cost to maintain the area, and we think that there should be a plan of management first to see what can be done with the land and what will be required for ongoing maintenance, and then how we fund it.
Darling, the rather cocky cockatoo, has flown the coop. She's a jailbird on the run, going over the garden fence of her Charlestown home, hitting the trees in the next block. The police were called in when Darling didn't want to budge. The long arm of the law couldn't quite reach, and although Darling was happy to give a friendly wave, she wasn't coming down. You may have guessed this family pet isn't your average cocky.
She is speaking Italian, and she likes pasta, and she likes everything nearly.
When the police had no luck, Shortland Electricity was called in, but the truck with the cherry picker couldn't get into the yard. Meanwhile, Darling has done another runner. In what's becoming a major international incident, police have asked anyone who notices a cockatoo speaking Italian to contact them immediately. After a long day at large, she'll probably be asking for a plate of pasta. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
About 50 craft of various categories crowded the shore at Nelson Bay
As well as locals, crews have registered from Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. The mainly multi-hulled regatta features Hobie, Nacra and Tornado cats, with a few laser sailing dinghies thrown in as well. Lake Macquarie's world champion 505 sailor Chris Nicholson has joined with internationally ranked Greg Hollier from Port Stephens on a Tornado for a conversion course and the beginning of a campaign toward Olympic gold.
At the moment we're just trying to compete in every regatta possible, so we're here today for our state championships. Repeat in every regatta possible to tune up against the best.
Does this mean that you're putting the 505s behind you and going for the Tornadoes now?
Yeah, certainly. We sold the 505 and we're fully committed now.
8 races will be sailed off Nelson Bay throughout the long weekend. Curry Workers was defending an unbeaten record on home ground, but Toronto, fuelled by their win against Maitland last week, came out on a roll. Toronto dominated possession during the first half, leaving Curry hanging by just a couple of points at 16-14. Curry's strength was weakened in the absence of Quinton, Shields and Miller out of today's match, but the side nonetheless came out full of fight. But it suffered a penalty goal after a Linane send-off, and Toronto tacked on another point with a field goal. A desperation dash in the dying moments of the game gave the home side cheer squad a boost, but an intercept turned the tables. Final score, Toronto 25, Curry 14. Also in first grade, Souths 48 ran away with the match against Central 8 at Townsend Oval. Maitland and Waratah still playing at Maitland. The new crew made its competition debut on an Olympic-class Tornado catamaran at Nelson Bay during a long weekend regatta. The pair took a respectable second overall placing. Chris Nicholson is reigning World 505 champion, but says it's time to move on. Does this mean that you're putting the 505s behind you and going for the Tornadoes now?
Yeah, certainly. We sold the 505 and we're fully committed now.
Greg Hollier was looking for a sailing partner hungry to win. The pair met at an institute camp some time ago. They're now committed to a tilt for a gold medal. They'll undergo fitness and tactics training at the Australian Yachting Federation camp in Canberra and receive instruction on sports psychology and nutrition.
Target is gold in 96, but at the moment we're just trying to compete in every regatta possible, so we're here today for our state championships. Repeat in every regatta possible to tune up against the best.
Hernandez's trainer turned translator for the day as the local media grilled the Puerto Rican boxer. 32-year-old Hernandez is a veteran of 43 fights, with only one loss to a legend of the ring, Julio Chavez. He has the advantage of height, reach and experience over Zhu, and his trainer predicts a knockout.
No mercy. Get him out in 6.
But Hernandez says he'll make it last 7 rounds to give the crowd value for money. The world number 6 says he'll retire from the ring if he's beaten. His trainer, Felix Pinter, a short-haired version of Don King, attracted nearly as much attention as the fighter. The ex-boxer made a light-hearted comeback this morning to take on yours truly after the questions didn't go his way.
He got to do some sparring section with me. Before I'll take you first, then he can...
A bulked-up Costa Zhu made light work of his much heavier opponent at a sparring session in Newcastle today. He'll save his talking for the ring next Monday night, which will be his first bout as an Australian citizen. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The body of Melissa Hunt was found floating in Burrinjim Dam at Stockrington yesterday morning by 3 bushwalkers. A post-mortem examination has established Mrs Hunt died from a fractured skull, but police are unsure how the injuries were inflicted. The area around the dam was searched this morning while divers combed the murky water looking for a possible weapon.
A number of items have been located, but we're not at liberty at this stage to disclose what those items are.
Police identified Mrs Hunt last night following a report on NBN News. It's believed she'd been married for just over a month. According to police, Mrs Hunt had 2 small children, both from a previous marriage. She was last seen at her Whitebridge home on Saturday the 17th. She had not been reported missing, but relatives were apparently concerned for her welfare. Police are trying to piece together Mrs Hunt's movements in the time she was missing. They say she was often in the Charlestown or Whitebridge areas or in the inner city.
We have got some information that she did work as a prostitute, but how frequently we're not sure at this stage.
The night Mrs Hunt disappeared, she was wearing fawn-coloured pants and a striped top. She had numerous tattoos on her body. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Police say the station wagon was travelling west when it ran off the road twice. The 44-year-old male driver apparently regained control the first time, but 100 metres along the road, the vehicle careered across a gutter, up a slight embankment and slammed into a tree. A woman passenger in the front seat was trapped and it took rescue crews some time to release her body. The other woman, who was in a rear seat, was also fatally injured. The driver was taken to Wyong Hospital with chest injuries and he's in a satisfactory condition. Wyong police spent the afternoon investigating the crash and have not released the names of the dead women, but it's believed one was in her 40s and the other elderly.